Yes, dealing with people who get easily defensive can be really frustrating, especially when you're just trying to have a normal conversation or express your own feelings or share some neutral feedback and they automatically go into defensive mode. It can be really difficult. But what I want you to know is that their defensiveness is not about you. It's about something inside of them that is feeling threatened. Something's feeling triggered. Something's feeling vulnerable. And then they have this automatic reaction to protect it by getting defensive. And so what we're going to talk about today is the main reasons why people get easily defensive or are highly defensive in everyday situations, and then what you can do to approach it in more emotionally intelligent, effective, and grounded ways so that you don't get pulled in to whatever emotional drama that they are experiencing, and you can keep yourself calm, centered, grounded, and turn the conversation around into something that is more healthy, helpful, and serving. Are you ready? But first, if you're new here, welcome to our incredible little corner on the internet. Take a second, introduce yourself in the comment section below. If you're back again, always good to have you. My name is Julia Christina. I am a registered clinical therapist, a researcher, a coach, a speaker, and the author of my book, Drive Your Own Darn Bus, and the creator of my membership community, the Shift Society, where we are taking this work to the next level, and you are being guided and supported the whole way through. You can get more information about that in the description below. I help heart-centered humans think better, feel better, and live better so that they can like themselves and their lives more every day. So let's go through this list of why people get defensive, because this is going to help you build your emotional intelligence. This is going to help you to really understand what's going on with them so that you can keep steady and not get pulled into their defensiveness, so that you can understand what's going on, because that is going to be the first step in changing how you respond to them or deal with them when they are being defensive. So first of all, understanding that when someone is being defensive, it's because they have a deep-rooted insecurity about whatever it is that is the topic at hand. So let's say that someone is feeling really insecure about their job. They don't think they're very good at their job. And then you offer some kind of feedback like, oh, hey, could you double check this? Because it seems like there might have been a couple mistakes in there. Neutral comment. Nothing that's meant to belittle them or put them down. And then they automatically be like, well, you try doing work that is hard as I'm doing. And you try keeping up with everything that I have on my plate. And you try doing everything perfectly all the time. And you're like, whoa, I'm just asking to double check something because there was a couple mistakes, like no ill intent. But they're insecure about their job performance. They don't think that they are doing a very good job. So that little bit of a comment is going to poke something that's going to hit something sharp, that's going to feel like something sharp is being poked into them. And then they're going to have a reaction like that. So really understanding that when someone is doubting their abilities, doubting their worth, doubting their intelligence, doubting their value, even neutral feedback to them can be taken as a judgment or an attack that they feel like they need to defend themselves against. The next reason why people get defensive is they've had past experiences that have taught them to be vigilant, to be on guard. If they grew up in families where there was a lot of criticism, a lot of judgment, then they probably had to learn how to defend themselves. Where if they learned that most comments that are coming their way are meant to be critical, are meant to put them down, are meant to make them feel small, then they're going to have that kind of wired into their brain that that's what comments from other people, even people not in their family who don't have this intent, that's what their intention is going to be. And so they're kind of like generalizing that if I grew up in an environment where there's a lot of criticism, a lot of judgment, a lot of put downs, that's what I expect from people. That's what I assume people are coming to me with. Then I'm going to keep assuming that, even with people, individuals, or circumstances where that isn't the case. It's like this learned response that doesn't just get unlearned when the circumstance, the relationship, or the situation changes. When the person grows up and has a completely different environment, they're going to still have those automatic reactions. So a more specific example, let's say someone grew up in a household where they were blamed repeatedly for things that weren't their fault or weren't entirely their fault, but were never given an opportunity to explain themselves or to be heard. And they were always just told it was their fault. And their only defense in those moments was to quickly say, it wasn't my fault. Then that's what they're going to do as an adult. They're going to automatically go into this, that it wasn't my fault. If that's the only words that they could get in as a child, that's going to be the only thing that they feel like they can do as an adult. The next reason why people get defensive is that they equate being wrong with being weak. A lot of people equate failure with weakness. A lot of people equate correction or constructive feedback as failure, which they then equate with being weak. And if they have a trigger with being weak, that being weak or being wrong means that you're less than, that you're inferior to, then they are going to get highly defensive around anything that feels like it's some kind of correction or some kind of criticism. Instead of just being able to take that and reflect on it, they are going to get highly defensive of it. So let's say that you point out someone's mispronunciation of a word, and they associate that mispronunciation with failure, which they associate with weakness, and they are very triggered by the idea that they could be weak because that means that they're less than or inferior to, then they're going to get defensive about it. There's something bigger going on. It's not about them being upset that you corrected their mispronunciation. When there's a big reaction, there is a bigger trigger, a bigger feeling, a bigger insecurity that's being hit. So understanding that it's not always just what it seems like on the surface. If it seems disproportionate, if it seems unreasonable, if it seems bigger than it should be, it's because there's something bigger going on. Another reason why people get highly defensive is if they have a nervous system that is kind of buzzing at this intense sort of fight or flight mode, where they're always kind of on guard. They're always kind of anxious. They're always kind of worried. They're always kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And so something little happens, some feedback gets given, a comment is said. They have this sort of defensive filter that is taking that as a threat, as an insult, as something that they need to be on guard about. And that sort of fight or flight vibrating level that someone might be on a lot of the time can come from a whole variety of reasons. They are experiencing stress in their everyday life. They are going through a major transition. They've just had a significant loss. They have a lot of trauma from their past. We don't know. But if someone seems really tense and they're really quick to react and get defensive with something small, then again, there's something bigger going on. And then another, probably the biggest reason that sort of encapsulates all of what we just talked about is that they really lack emotional intelligence. Instead of taking a step back and being like, wow, I just had a big reaction to that, or I got triggered by that, or that really upset me. Instead of taking a step back and getting curious and asking themselves, I wonder what's going on. I wonder what vulnerability that hit. I wonder what insecurity just came up for me. I wonder what's going on deeper under the surface that caused me to have this big reaction, which is so much about what emotional intelligence is about getting curious about our emotions, understanding and learning how to respond instead of just reacting, digging a little bit deeper. And if they lack that emotional intelligence, they're not going to respond to a criticism with, well, like that's kind of hard for me to hear, but let me just take a few minutes to process this. They're going to say something like, why do you always criticize me? Why are you always coming at me? Can't I do anything right? Or instead of just going with the automatic assumption that when an ambiguous statement comes their way, that it means that it's something critical, something negative, something belittling, that they take a moment and they double check and they ask the person, hey, what did you mean by that? Or can you clarify what you were saying there? Instead of that, they go into defensive mode. They go into self-protection mode. And so they really lack that emotional intelligence. So what do? How can you not get pulled into that? How can you use and build your own emotional intelligence when dealing with someone who is getting defensive? Let's go through a few of those key things now. The first one is for you to stay calm. Because of course, when someone gets defensive, your automatic reaction is to get either offended or defensive yourself and get into an argument, get reactive, get triggered. And then it's just two triggered, defensive, offended people going at each other, and it doesn't usually go anywhere helpful. So the first thing for you to do is to practice your emotional intelligence by taking a break and a breath and connecting with yourself and calming down your reaction before you do or say anything. Checking in with yourself, reminding yourself that this is not about you and you don't need to get sucked in, and you may just need to get curious about what's going on with them first and see that they're having a big reaction to a relatively small thing, which means that there's something bigger going on. And again, it's not about you. The second thing is don't try to win, especially when emotions are running high, especially when there's a lot of tension there, when someone is already in defensive mode. They're not going to soften and be open to hearing your side in that moment. They're not going to be open to seeing how they are making a false assumption, how they are wrong, because that might even cause them to be even more defensive. So then you have you trying to be right, them trying to defend themselves, and then it just, again, ends up in this conflict, ends up in this mess, ends up in both people getting nowhere. So instead of trying to win, try to understand. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, you're being so defensive right now. That's not what I said. That's not what I meant. Taking a step back, and man, this is not always easy, but holy, is it effective? Saying, I notice that you're having a big reaction right now. Help me understand what's happening. What's going on right now? And man, is that going to require a lot of your own emotional intelligence to regulate yourself? And if you need some help with that, with regulating your emotions when big things like that come up, I have the Sensitive Person's Guide to Handling Big Feelings that you can get in the link in the description below. And that's really going to help you know what to do in order to process those emotions, in order to regulate yourself, keeping yourself centered and grounded, no matter whomever or whatever is going on either inside or around you. So make sure you grab that Sensitive Person's Guide to Handling Big Feelings. The next thing, and this one is also going to require your own emotional regulation first before you can do this, but this one is called rolling with resistance. So instead of arguing with them, instead of trying to prove them wrong about why they shouldn't be defensive, why you didn't mean it that way, roll with whatever it is that they are feeling. Being able to say something like, I hear you. I can understand why that would be upsetting. I can see that even if it wasn't my intention, that could feel really uncomfortable or difficult for you. Let's figure this out together. Let's work to understand each other better. When we do that, the person's defenses come down. When they don't feel like they need to continue to defend themselves, when they feel like they're being acknowledged, heard, or maybe even understood, even if you don't agree with their reaction, understand that coming from where they're coming from, knowing what you know about why people get defensive, understanding why that could be a reaction to them that they would have, that it makes sense. It's understandable you're reacting in this way, given that you've had this upbringing, this childhood, you're going through this really difficult thing in your life, you've learned these reactions to things for whatever reason. Do you see how that understanding helps us to stay grounded, to stay centered, to keep our emotional maturity intact? And when we respond like that, they're much more likely to feel heard and be willing to move into a productive conversation and less likely to feel attacked. The next one is a strategy I teach often in my one-to-one therapy sessions with people that are having struggles with conflict in their marriages, in their partnerships, in their primary relationships. And this one is about reframing criticism into collaboration. Instead of seeing it as me versus you never listen to me. Well, you never do this. Well, I never do this because you never do this. And then you just keep escalating to see who has the most transgressions on their list of transgressions, and whoever has the most wins? Not really. Both people lose when it turns to that. So instead of it me versus you, we see it as us versus the issue. So the issue might be that I am feeling unheard, I am feeling unimportant, I'm not feeling valued because you left your dishes in the sink, you haven't planned a date night for a while, you don't seem to listen to me when we're talking or have time for me. So instead of saying, well, you always do this stuff and getting into this, well, you always do this or you always do that, seeing it as it's us against the problem. And it's working towards a collaborative solution. So the problem is, I want to feel more connected. I want to feel more love. I want to feel more in sync. And so if we can see it as, instead of you never have time for me, see it as I want more connection with you, then we can both work on that together. There's a complaint and then there's a root of the problem. The complaint is you never listen to me. The root of the problem is I'm craving more intimate, more intentional, more close connection. So as soon as you can go a step below the complaint and see what the actual vulnerability, the actual problem, the actual issue is, then you can collaborate on that thing that is probably going to be good for both people. And then at the end of the day, knowing that there are going to be some conversations or situations with some people that are not going to be worth your time, your energy, or your effort. And it's in those times that you need to allow yourself to just walk away. If the person is unable or unwilling to engage in a healthy conversation after you've used these emotionally intelligent and healthy approaches to them, if they continue to get aggressive or defensive or manipulative or gaslighting, it's okay to set a boundary. It's okay to say to them, I can see that this conversation isn't going anywhere healthy, helpful, or productive. So let's take some time to cool down and come back to it later. Or you can say something like, I want to talk about this and work this out with you, but I will not do it unless you are willing to have a respectful conversation with me about it. Your choice to get upset about it, my choice to disengage from the conversation. If you would like to continue with the conversation, then this is what I need from you, and then I am more than willing and dedicated to and want to work this out with you. And then sometimes you are just going to need to end the conversation and not say anything. If they get highly defensive and you know that whatever you say is going to be twisted, it's going to be reacted to, it's going to be turned on you, and you just don't have the energy to manage your own mind and emotions around their unmanaged mind and emotions, then you can just walk away. You can say if you want, I'm not doing this. This isn't helpful, and shut down the conversation, or just remove yourself from the situation. That will communicate very clearly what you are available for and what you are not available for. Intentional non-engagement is a boundary. It's not letting someone walk all over you. It's you choosing where you want to spend your mental and emotional energy. And if you don't want to spend it on that, you don't have to. Make sure you grab that Sensitive Person's Guide to Handling Big Feelings in the description below. And I also have a in-depth, healthy and effective assertive communication course called Speak and Feel Heard, where you'll learn essential skills to keep yourself regulated, keep yourself calm, and learn how to speak in an effective and emotionally intelligent way. No matter what someone is bringing to you, you get to decide how you are going to handle it. You can grab that, check it out, Speak and Feel Heard, and let me know what connected with you from this talk. I always love to hear. And until next time, take good care of yourself. Take good care of those around you. Bye for now.